this computer. Hi, everyone. Today I want to talk to you about something that every service leader should think about. Whether you're a rabbi, a lay leader, a Shaliach Tzibbur, or the person who got voluntold, you need to think about this. What kind of a prayer leader are you? We all have a style of leading prayer. Sometimes we know it, and sometimes we only think we know it. And sometimes our style is absolutely perfect for our group, and sometimes our style is absolutely not perfect for our group at all. So, we're going to take a look at this, a few models of tefillah leadership, what each one brings to the table, and most importantly, how to figure out what your community needs from you right now. My philosophy always is that if your community is not getting anything from your leadership or what you are doing, then you're not doing something right. The community has to be able to get something from it, and you have to be able to get something from it as well. So let's talk about the models. I'm going to walk through 8 common models of service leadership. None of these are good or bad. They're tools. The question is really, are you using the right tool for the moment? But in order to pick the right tool, you have to know what you are, what style best suits you. And I do have a couple small examples to add in. So let's talk about the Shaliach Tzibbur. So this is the model that I grew up with, the model that I admire the most. This is the classic role, the representative of the community before God. This is the person, when the rabbi's not in, they can get up to the bima and they can replace the rabbi in all intents and purposes for leading the service. They are accurate in their liturgy. They are correct nusach, and they have continuity. In fact, in a lot of congregations, the Shaliach Tzibbur actually has made it through multiple rabbis, and a lot of times the Shaliach Tzibburs are so knowledgeable that sometimes when certain holidays come or certain things come, they actually remind the rabbi, oh, hey, we have to do this here because this is the holiday. They have clear structure. They're halakhically grounded, whether from intense study on their own or because, boy, when you've lived this for 30 years, you know it cold. And so they also have a sense of tradition. They've been doing it for a long time. They get meaning from this transition or the tradition. And so this comes with great benefit, but like everything, there's always challenges. So to some or younger people, they can feel formal or inaccessible. As Shaliach Tzibburs have a worship style, they may seem inaccessible for newcomers because they're praying usually very quickly. Shaliach Tzibburs can get you from start to lunchtime right on time. I've worked with many Shaliach Tzibburs that if I've run late with my Devar Torah, or if it's a bar mitzvah and sometimes you have a little complications, things take a little bit longer, they'll daven and they'll get everything in and you're still eating at noon. So that is a strength, but it's also a challenge, especially for people who can't read Hebrew. This model shines in communities that have stability and familiarity. So think about large communities, especially large Orthodox or large conservative communities. This is where this model shines. Now let's talk about the cantorial performance model. Boy, this model is sometimes awesome to listen to, especially at the high holy holidays or special times. This is the leader who elevates the prayer through musical artistry. They can sing and they can hit the high notes and the ground notes, and the emotions that they give just hit you right in the chest. You can come away from these services like you have been touched spiritually through music. They inspire awe, they create emotional peaks, and everyone leaves these services saying, why can't we do this? Well, you can't do this because it's a performance model. These people are able to practice this and have years of singing experience and a grounded understanding and emotionally how music touches people. So the big downside is that it can turn the congregation into an audience instead of participants. You can't join in to a song when the cantor is doing these beautiful arias. You have to listen. Not only can you not enjoy it if you're trying to sing along with someone who's doing it, but you can actually ruin the experience for others. So you really have to say these are participatory type models. These work really good in super large congregations where there's a lot of different people with a lot of different worship styles, but everyone can use the commonality of music. So that's really what the cantorial performance model is being carried through the service with music. Let's talk about the facilitator model. I like this model and I tend to default to this model. This leader guides the room gently. They pace, they have cues, they have invitations. Highly inclusive. In fact, this is the type of person when I'm on the bema and I see one of my Hebrew school kids, I'll say, and Jason will come up. Can Jason come up now and join us as we say the V'ahavta and the Shema? Or can Sarah come up and open the ark while we turn to page whatever? I guide people through it. Or I'll be in a prayer thing and I'll be like, let's turn to page 429 where we have an English prayer that talks about how much we love God. Would someone like to read this in English? Highly inclusive. I adapt. I never know how many people I have every week. I don't know who's going to be in the audience. And so it makes the people who are there feel like the service couldn't happen if they weren't there. But it requires a lot of subtlety and a lot of emotional intelligence. It requires a lot of looking at people and having a sensitivity to understand this person is not wanting to participate today. Or if they give you the shake, to just say, okay, well, we're going to go on, really understanding where your group is at any given time. It's great for mixed communities, spaces where people have different levels of comfort, or spaces where, you've been together for a long time and you kind of really know that, that everyone's pretty much willing to help with a piece here or there. Now, the next one is the participatory or communal singing. And this is kind of interesting. These experiences, when people go to services or groups that do this communal singing, they are often touched in a way like the cantorial model, but in a more communal way, amazed at how all our voices together were able to build this spiritual feeling, this spiritual community. And it's all about singing stuff together. And maybe you sing one or two songs, but you may sing them very long, and all these beautiful melodies and harmonies come out. It's joyful, it's accessible, it builds community. I tend to say that this one is a little bit, you have to be a little bit on the fly with this one. You never know where this is going to go. The challenge is that you can lose depth or structure if everything becomes a sing along. And when you're singing a prayer for 10 minutes, you can't then get all the prayers in, or you would be there till dinner time. So it's perfect for people who are thriving on energy, togetherness, Kabbalat Shabbats. This is perfect for certain holiday programs, but it's a really great way to fuse a group together if they all enjoy music. So let's talk about the experiential educational leader. And this leader teaches as they go. They explain meaning, they offer context. This is really good for learners, youth, reflective groups, special services. You can do this as a rabbi or a service leader from the bema if you are careful. And I always say that you only can have a nugget here or a nugget there. There's a couple challenges with this. Oh, excuse me. The challenges are that too much talking can break the spiritual flow. So if you're in this middle of this big spiritual prayer and something's happening, you're like, oh, by the way, this is the oldest prayer that we have, and it dates back to the first temple. You may have broken that spiritual flow that you had gotten put together. Now, the other problem is that if you add too many pieces, your service is going to go over. And I've seen that challenge happen where many times I've tried to use the experiential educational model, and then maybe I will have a lay leader come up and then he wants to add a nugget, and then another lay leader's doing a different thing and then he wants to add a nugget, and now pretty soon there's all these nuggets and I have to cut my Devar Torah out because too many people have had conversations. And we'll talk about that in another video about who should talk at the bima and the dangers of just letting anyone talk whenever. Which is a different situation. So let's talk about kavana centered or intention focused. Kavana meaning intention. And this model focuses on intention, framing, silence, and reflection. Its strengths are that it can deepen personal meaning, but you can't go fast paced with this. This is also not great for highly traditional settings because they get through the liturgy, and there is benefit for getting through the liturgy, and there is prayerfulness and routine and commitment to God when you get through the liturgy. But when you get into kavana centered and deepening, you aren't going fast paced. It's kind of like the singing communal, but now this is in prayer, intention, focus. It's taking some little things and making a deep connection. However, there you go. There are times when maybe we do need to make a deep connection, and you have people leave the service saying, wow, that hit me. And that is once in a while, that's what you're aiming for. Hey, that hit me. Now let's talk about the contemplative meditative. And this is quiet, mindfulness, inwardness. It's calming and accessible to seekers. However, it can feel slow or unfamiliar to some. And the reason is because there are a lot of people that aren't comfortable with quiet meditation or reflection. And traditional Judaism, in the traditional sense of American sitting in a congregation Judaism, this seems more to be of an Eastern orient for people who are traditional. Yeah. They might even, I've heard people say, oh, we're not going to do the mystical woo-woo stuff today, are we? Okay. So I usually like to save this stuff for retreat settings, communities that are exploring spirituality, classes, special classes. It's great to have a bunch of traditional people come on a different day and do something really spiritual and be amazed, like, wow, that touched me. I can't believe that touched me. Yeah, so it's really interesting. But a lot of times too, this can be personal practice. So the contemplative meditative works well, but very, very specific settings. And then there's the hybrid model, which is what most of us actually are. We have flexible, realistic, responsible schedules. When we are small community leaders, we almost have to be hybrids because we don't know who's going to be in our service. As I will probably say this over and over in almost every video, many times when I start my service, I don't even know if I'm going to have a minyan through the Torah service. I might get it right through. I've had a couple times where I've gotten a minyan after I started. I didn't do the Torah service. I said, well, we can do a reading, and then my minyan comes, and then I gotta scramble quick to pull the Torah out. So hybrids have to be highly situational, and they have to have a lot of awareness. The other thing is, when you're a hybrid, it's good to know what your community needs. So post October 7th, that weekend, some synagogues relied on their traditional liturgy to get them through, and some just needed moments. Some went more reflective, more spiritual. Some went, like I said, more contemplative, meditative. Or some did communal singing. it's just being flexible for demanding um that the moment be answered with the exact right service. So the real questions, and I'm going to give you some ways to look at this to help you figure out what model you need at right after. But the real questions are, what kind of leader do you think you are? It's important to know, honestly, what kind of leader you are at this point. And then the second part of it is, what kind of leader does your community need? Do they need something reflective, something healing? Do they need the calm and traditional um, feeling of security that comes with liturgy? Do they need a spiritual infusion and they need something different? What does your community need? Because we lead from habit. And sometimes we lead from what we were taught. In fact, a lot of us service leaders in small communities, we lead the way the person before us did because we know that the best and it's most confident. So once you get confident in the service, then you need to back up and say, okay, why am I leading this way? Is it from habit? Is it because what I was taught? Or we lead from what we personally love. I have an example that I have a person I know that leads services and they love prayer. Their big thing is prayer. So when they lead services, they may add 4 or 5 extra prayers. That's what they love. The problem with tefillah leadership isn't about preferences. It's about service. The service is not about you. The service is about your community. And when you're holding a small community together, you really are responsible for keeping that group nurtured. You don't have enough people who you can say, if they don't like this, they can find something else. Because if that happens enough, you won't have a community anymore. Or if you're building a community, you're trying to get to that critical mass where eventually it starts to roll on its own and people bring others. So ask yourself these questions. Is your community craving structure or warmth? Are they needing energy or calm? Like, are you really a hyper person and you're getting in there and, hi, it's Shabbat and yay, welcome to Shabbat and let's do this Torah service and you're sprinting down the center aisle with the Torah and sprinting back? Is that too much for them? Are they ready for depth or do they need accessibility? We have a lot of senior congregations. There are days when I have a senior congregation and the Torah procession isn't normal because I need to get the people to the Torah. If I have a wheelchair here and a wheelchair here and some people in the middle, I need to figure out how to make it work so they have accessibility. Are they overwhelmed? I can speak fast. And I've been told multiple times that when I'm with my seniors, that I talk too fast and they can't follow along with the English prayers, which means that you don't just have one group of people praying when you take that sip of water. Your one unified English prayer becomes 12 different prayers because everybody then slows down to the pace that works for them. Are they spiritually hungry and need attention? So there are times where I'll meet a couple people and man, they want to know what's about Pesach. Is this verse the same as this verse? And I love to get into that, but is this the time to get into it? Because maybe the rest of the people are comfortable with the liturgy and their comfort comes into the liturgy. I have a person who goes to my rabbinical school, and she told an interesting story about a senior that comes to her synagogue every single Saturday. Every single Shabbat, he comes to the synagogue and he sits down, he puts in his earbud, he listens to baseball or whatever show it is, and he opens up his paper to a quarter and sticks it inside his siddur, and that's what he does. He listens to whatever game very quietly, no one can hear him, and that is his way. And his understanding of synagogue is that he is doing his duty by helping make the minyan, by his body being there and him being, face forward to the Torah. People have different ideas of what it is to be spiritual and what they need. So, but now we need to ask the hard question again. What does my natural style match? Does my natural style match what that congregation needs, or do I need to stretch and try something different? Your personality is absolutely important. If you're the small community leader and you're holding things together, you need that passion and personality. But that doesn't mean that you can't change a little. When I am too fast or too loud, I have to purposely, before I lead a service, sit quietly for a half an hour and focus on the service. And remember that I'm doing it for people. This is not a race for me to get through the service as fast as I can. So let's look at, there are a couple questions, 3 questions for self-reflection for leaders. What model do I naturally gravitate to? If you're naturally a singer, but your congregation isn't a singer, you need to think, when can I introduce a new song? When can I not? I will have some tips and videos on stuff like that coming up as well. But what model do I naturally gravitate for? What model does my community respond to most strongly? How do you know that your community responds to that? You know, usually it's, oh, I really like that service, or that was very interesting. When people comment, they usually really like it or really hate it. So when you get nothing, then you know it's kind of in the middle. So they usually will tell you, or maybe you'll have people who sing louder that day if it's a singing thing and they're the songs that they like and they know, and you realize that yes, those are the songs they need. Now the third question is that you need to ask is, where's the gap? What small shift can I make this week to bridge this service? And I really want to caution you that every time you make a change, it has to be small. Once in a while, you can make a big change. For instance, I just changed our Siddurs. We're in a community that uses both Love Shalem and Mishkan Tefillah. This year, Friday nights are Love Shalem and Mishkan Tefillah. Next year, my guess is that our Saturdays will be Love Shalem and our Fridays will be Mishkan Tefillah. I usually use Mishkan Tefillah on Saturdays because it's more accessible. If you're not as familiar with Hebrew, you're not familiar. If you're a new visitor, being that most people in the United States are Reformed, I am not Reformed, but I am learning and I am enjoying aspects of Mishkan Tefillah. So you have to make small shifts, but occasionally you will do a big one, like change your Siddur. And then you have to really be careful that when you make a big change, that every other change is even micro changes. In fact, I'm teaching them a new song. We only learn the first 2 lines. So it's Elohai Neshama. We're learning as like the Reformed congregations do, but we only learn the first 2 lines because that's all we can do. It's small. When they can start to sing that with me, then I'll add a couple more lines. So this isn't about reinventing yourself. It isn't about being it's about being intentional, responsive, and humble to adjust. And, as small community leaders, we come from various backgrounds. Some of us are business. I have nonprofit management. I have mental health services in my background and nonprofit management primarily. I have been a business owner several times. So I have this varied background. So I am taking little pieces from management, business, leadership, everything to make this work for me, because that's where we as community leaders and small group people come from. We are not the traditional, normally we're not the traditional, grew up, went to a Jewish camp. Then after Jewish camp, we went to a Jewish college. And then after Jewish college, we volunteered in our synagogue and then kept going. That's not traditionally who the small congregational leader. It's someone who's been in the congregation for years, or someone who just really is passionate on fire. Or maybe it could be a situation like me where I really enjoyed it and really wanted to do it, but got to a point where they needed me, and I just stood up, kind of just eased my way into it, and it went from 1, 2, 3s to every day. So we end up in these roles in all different ways. So that is the models of leadership. I encourage you to think about it. Leave questions. I eventually I can do separate videos on each different style to go into it in more in depth. But there you go. Small Bima, big Torah.